Shalom, friends. The holiday of Hanukkah is here, so it's time for me to tell you the epic story of a daring and extremely attractive assassin who, against all odds, took out a high-ranking enemy leader to save the oppressed. Welcome to the Story of Judith, a Jewish lore reactions Hanukkah Special. As our tale begins, a Judean city is being besieged by the massive army of Assyrian general Holofernes. And when I say massive, I mean that it makes the Urukai at Helm's Deep look like an intimate garden party between friends. Holofernes had been ordered to conquer Judea. Any attempt to ask for peace was met with, LOL no. He had decimated village after village, burning the farmland as he went, all on behalf of King Nebuchadnezzar, that's who I meant. But this city was the last stronghold between the advancing army and Jerusalem. If this city fell, it would mean the destruction of the Jews and the destruction of the temple. It was a terrible situation for the citizens of that city, and time was indeed running out because Holofernes had cut the water supply. After a month of this, the leaders of the city were about to surrender, but they decided to give God 5 business days to save them. But after that, they were going to give over the city to the Assyrians. That's when the beautiful and devout young widow Judith, Yehudit, said, Pause. Fellow citizens, hang on. This 5-day ultimatum to God is, frankly, delulu. God does not roll like that. Yes, absolutely, keep praying. I'm just gonna head over to the enemy camp and do something so incredibly badass that people will still be making social media videos about it thousands of years in the future. BRB before the 5 days are up. Yehudit was many things. Brave, independently wealthy, smart, and possessed vast amounts of pretty privilege. A woman with zero self-esteem problems and absolute confidence in her own abilities. I cannot relate, but I aspire to. Yehudit prayed to God for strength, so their oppressors would be struck down by the hand of a woman. Amen. A-fucking-man. You just know that somewhere out there, the Witch King of Angmar just felt a weird, like a chill. Anyway, Yehudit and her equally brave maid, who we will call Bina, got ready to carry out their tactical strike. They dressed Yehudit in her most eye-catching, fabulous, red carpet-worthy fit. The drip was immaculate. In this case, more was more. Okay, it was more. And then they packed supplies. Figs, wine, some kind bars, and last but certainly not least, some highly strategic cheese. Yes, it was giving girl dinner, but it was also kosher, because nobody wants to do an assassination when you're hangry. And 2, it was everything they needed for above-mentioned assassination. When it was dark enough outside, Yehudit and Bina took their basket and door-dashed to the enemy camp. When the Assyrian soldiers see Yehudit, they're like, who is this diva? But Yehudit presented herself as very demure and also very mindful. She says, I'm a Judean, but I'm also just a girl, and I don't want to die. I've decided to do a complete 180 and give the brilliant General Holofernes every bit of intel I could possibly give him on how to get into the city really easily. The frankly dazed Assyrians take Yehudit and her maid to the tent of Holofernes. Yehudit had astutely inferred that Holofernes was going to be a chauvinist pig, and he was. He was not going to be able to see past her gender nor her face card. She told him how much she admired him and how amazing he was at war. Ugh. Just validating everything he already believed about himself as a high-value man. Holofernes is obviously immediately down bad for her, to the point that he had absolutely zero security concerns about this situation. After all, who's afraid of a woman and her maid and a picnic basket? I mean, they had already checked for, like, knives or a flask of aqua tofana in there, but they didn't find anything, so they thought they were fine. For several days, Yehudit and Bina stayed in the camp, eating the kosher food they had brought with them, and biding their time. One night at dinner in the tent of Holofernes, Yehudit was serving just so much face and also so many snacks. Snacks that Holofernes was very much enjoying consuming. He ate the figs, the last of the kind bars, and the cheese, which was actually way too salty. Oh my god, how much sodium is in this? He had been thirsty, but now he was just thirsty, so he chugged the wine. He got absolutely blitzed. His servants decide this is their moment to leave the tent. They wanted to give their general whatever time he needed with their beautiful captive. But the truth was, they had severely misjudged the situation. Yehudit wasn't trapped in the tent with Holofernes. Holofernes was trapped in the tent with her. The drunk AF Holofernes passes out on his bed, does not even take his sandals off. And when the snoring begins, Yehudit quietly gets up, nods to Bina, who is standing by the entrance to the tent, and goes over to Holofernes. She picked up his own sword, and then she brought the sword down, slicing through his neck. His severed head rolls across the carpet and into the overturned picnic basket. Goal! Wisely, Bina had already lined it with a ShamWow. Meanwhile, I'm just over here being like, bro, your body, her choice, your head, her basket. Yehudit and Bina take their grisly trophy and exit the enemy camp with alacrity. Sometimes this is what women supporting women really looks like. It's just so beautiful. They return to the city where everyone is shook that they are still alive. And not only that, they brought just like the most unique present. Like, I'm sorry, there is literally no gift that's ever going to live up to that one. Yehudit says, again, slow your roll. This is just step one. Now I'm going to do some psychological warfare. In the morning, the Assyrians go into Holofernes' tent, where they assumed that he had spent a super fun night assaulting Yehudit. Instead, oh, oopsie whoopsie, they just find his headless corpse flopped on the ground. And they're like, holy fucking shit! And they run out screaming. That's when they look towards the city they were besieging and see, wait, what is that? Oh, that's his head. Spiked onto the city wall by Yehudit. The Assyrian army was all over the place, completely disorganized and demoralized, which is why when the Judeans suddenly attacked them, they were not prepared for that. Some were like, I do not want the smoke, and ran away. Others stayed to try and fight, but let's be real. It was Fafo time for the Assyrian army. After her city was safe, Yehudit led the people in a song and dance of victory and thanksgiving to God for their survival against their oppressors, which is truly a peak Jewish woman thing to do. During her lifetime, Yehudit was celebrated for all that she had done. And although every man wanted to marry her, she decided she'd be happier to just live with Bina at her side. The Sam to her Frodo, the Merry to her Pippin, or the Merry to her Eowyn, whatever floats your boat. Her real ride or die. Yehudit had saved her people using a combination of determination, sex appeal, brute physical strength, teamwork, and salt. Now, the book of Yehudit is not technically part of the Tanakh, but her story is incredibly popular. And as it was passed down through the generations, Yehudit became more and more associated with the Maccabees, even though her tale is set a long time before the events of Hanukkah. If we're going to have a holiday about Jews with swords, thematically, Yehudit should be involved. Thus, some of the earliest latkes were actually made out of cheese in her honor. And this is why anybody who chooses applesauce instead of sour cream as the appropriate topping for latkes is wrong. Yeah, I said what I said. In Yehudit, we find a hero who flips the status quo, who uses her anger and her sexuality and channeled it into strategic action and retribution in a deeply, deeply cathartic way. An iconic feminist figure before feminism had a term to define itself. A character truly ahead of her time. And I mean that literally.